Imagine being lectured on trade by a country whose air traffic controllers are being fed by airlines. Today, we're comparing two styles of global leadership. One is unraveling in public, and the other is building quietly in Asia. You guessed it, we're looking at our dear Canada and USA, who seem to have become the global celebrities of trade. Both of these countries are currently at ASEAN, and for the record, ASEAN is an event that's going on right now in Malaysia, where all these top people are coming to and they're discussing trade policies and signing different agreements. In this video, though, we're going to look at the Trump-era trade tantrums, how Canada is pivoting under Mark Carney, and why leadership style isn't just about tone, but about consequences. We're going to get into all of this, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to like this video, and if you enjoy the content, subscribe, as it really helps us out. All right, let's get into it. There is a strange psychology to grievance politics. Under Donald Trump, US trade policy turned into a kind of performative paranoia. If America lost, someone must have cheated somehow. Soybean farmers were left stranded as China retaliated against US tariffs. Fox News has cast it as some sort of a blackmail. Energy secretaries assured viewers that America was doing deals with miners, processors, and manufacturers. It was chaos rebranded as some sort of a strategy. But the logic was clear: inflate the threat, then walk it back and call it a win. 100% tariffs one day, a framework the next. It's essentially leadership by whiplash, and the damage wasn't just diplomatic, but psychological too. You can't really govern a country like a bad sports dad, telling your team they only lost because the other team cheated. It turns everyone into a victim and no one really into a builder. And the longer that worldview sticks, the harder it becomes to lead anyone, let alone negotiate with the whole world. Let's look at what President Trump posted just earlier. He says, what's worse, the NBA players cheating at cards and probably much else, or the Democrats cheating on elections, the 2020 presidential election being rigged and stolen is a far bigger scandal. Look what happened to our country when a crooked moron became our president. I hope the DOJ pursues this with as much gusto as befitting the biggest scandal in American history. If not, it will happen again, including the upcoming midterms. No mail-in, no early voting, yes to voter ID. Watch how totally dishonest the California prop vote is. Millions of ballots being shipped. Get smart, Republicans, before it's too late. First of all, I still maintain that this kind of language from a person who's meant to be a role model is not acceptable to me personally, but hey, he doesn't care what I think. Second, and more importantly, what's all this talk with the upcoming midterms? Just yesterday, we discussed the sheer threat of what's at scale here in another video that I'll link here, where we literally had President Obama discuss the current trajectory of American democracy slowly cracking. It appears they either don't want the midterms to happen or, well, the unspeakable alternatives, right? And I'm not here just talking about some erratic tweets or coughing fits on cable news, which we have had a huge amount of. It's about what happens when policy is driven by mood and grievance. By the way, if you're interested in improving your critical thinking skills, the sign-up link for my upcoming book is in the description. Check it out. I'll be emailing people with a discount when it's out this weekend. If that's not your thing, but you still want to support the channel, you can check me out on Ko-fi. Meanwhile, another country was on the same continent, in the same decade, facing the same global turbulence, and chose a different path. Canada, under Prime Minister Mark Carney, has turned its attention to Southeast Asia. No capital letters, no vendettas, no shouting, just trade. Look at what he says in his tweet here. Southeast Asia is rapidly growing, 5 trillion economy. Canada is working to finalize a new Canada-ASEAN free trade agreement, a partnership that would create huge opportunities for workers and businesses on both sides of the Pacific. 5 trillion in GDP across ASEAN countries, a region growing faster than Europe and more stable than Latin America. Canada sees what others are kind of too distracted to see. This is where the future is going to be built. Also notice the shift in language and tone. Yeah, Carney is the former governor of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada. He's not a man of spectacle. He doesn't tweet in all caps. He speaks in frameworks, in partnerships, in outcomes. The Canada-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement he's finalizing is not flashy, but it is going to be probably monumental in my view. It's all deeply Canadian as well, rational, incremental, and cooperative. While the US was threatening to cut off China from rare earths unless Beijing behaved, Canada was forming new alliances in the Pacific, not out of weakness, but out of realism. Carney's October visit to Malaysia, Singapore, and South Korea marked a clear step in Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy, deepening ties not just for trade, but for security and regional stability. In Kuala Lumpur, he secured a letter of intent to boost Canadian investment in Malaysia's clean energy and tech sectors. It was quiet diplomacy, but with super tangible outcomes. And the timing is no accident here, my friends. As US trade relationships wobble between escalation and retreat, Canada is building credibility. A Reuters headline put it very plainly: Carney visits Asia to forge new alliances and reduce US dependence. It's not a pivot born out of panic, but out of patience and diversification. Let's go back to America for a moment. As the Trump administration played brinkmanship with China and bullied and continues to bully allies like Canada over aluminum tariffs, the domestic cost was growing. Airports across the US began reporting shortages of air traffic controllers. Just in one weekend, more than 20 incidents were logged. The cause was federal dysfunction, the government shutdown, budget fights, the usual shenanigans. Airlines were sending lunch and dinners to towers so controllers could eat. The transportation secretary gave a press conference where he praised the professionalism of workers who were being forced to rely on donated meals. We literally have another video focusing on how 42 million Americans are relying on food stamps, which might not even be delivered in November because of the US government shutdown. Say what you want about politics, but my allegiance will always lie with the people themselves, and this just hurts. You can call that strength, but it's actually, in my view, desperation with a flag pinned to it. Meanwhile, the US was considering a $40 billion bailout for Argentina, a country with a well-documented habit of not repaying its loans. Even Trump voters opposed it, and yet officials promised that it was not a bailout, but a strategic swap line. The Treasury even said, essentially, don't worry, it's money that we can control, as if that's supposed to reassure anyone, like it's literally taxpayers' money. I think what really strikes me here is the cognitive dissonance of things. You can't scream about America first while throwing tens of billions at a foreign government, all while your own air traffic system is short-staffed and your workers are surviving on donated meals. The symbolism writes itself. This is how you lose credibility. You make promises no one believes. You spend money no one supports. You lead through confusion, then wonder why the world doesn't take you seriously. And when the system breaks, the answer is never reflection. It's always just blame. Someone else cheated. Someone else sabotaged it. That's the rot beneath the spectacle. But Canada, again, offers contrast. Mark Carney doesn't pretend to control every variable. He builds trust by managing what can be managed: risk, relationships, reputation. There is a calm to it, and honestly, it's refreshing. In a world addicted to drama, Carney is doing the work of governing like it's still a real job, because it is. His trip to Asia wasn't just a trade mission. It was a message that Canada is open, stable, and looking east. I think the subtext matters more than we often acknowledge here. Countries in Southeast Asia aren't looking for another superpower to boss them around. They're looking for steady hands, and Canada shows up like a neighbor, not a dealer. Southeast Asia is increasingly central to global supply chains, especially as decoupling from China accelerates. Countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia are becoming manufacturing hubs. They want partners, not patrons. That distinction is everything in my view. Canada's pitch is compelling. We're not here to exploit, we're here to integrate. It's trade built on mutual benefits, not muscle. And while the US used trade as a weapon against friends and rivals alike, Canada is using it as a bridge. There's a reason Canadian officials don't need to shout loyalty or dominance. They earn it quietly and repeatedly, and that earns you something even more valuable in the long run: trust. So what builds more trust in the long run? 100% tariffs or quiet cooperation? I think you already know the answer. Canada certainly does. Trump's America believes strength meant shouting, but real strength, durable strategic strength, is from composure. It's not the loudest voice in the room. It's the one that people actually want to listen to when the stakes are high. While US officials were stammering through cable news interviews trying to explain why a $40 billion loan to Argentina wasn't really a bailout, Mark Carney was sitting with ministers in Jakarta outlining climate-focused trade provisions and locking in Canada's future across the Pacific. While others made noise, Canada made plans. And there's a dignity in this, a kind of strength that doesn't need to demand your attention because it earns it consistently. I don't know about you, but I'd rather put my chips on a country that plays the long game with calm hands. But that's just me personally. As global power rebalances, that kind of leadership is not just refreshing, but also necessary. If this resonated with you, there are more videos linked below that explore how Canada's role in the world is shifting subtly but very strategically. Hope to see you in the next one.